Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Second Cup of Coffee. This is Pastor Tom. Next to me is Brandon Wilcox, who does all of our production and editing and everything that looks good on Second Cup of Coffee. He's responsible for, so very grateful that he would step behind the camera as he does from time to time. We're talking about this month, we're wrapping up our series called Walk, and we talked about Thomas. We talked about last week a quote by T.F. Tenney that we love to mount up with the wings as eagles, Isaiah 40:31, and we love to fly. We love to run, but he said there's a whole lot of walking involved. There's another key to that walk that Brandon and I had a conversation off camera, which kind of spurred this conversation on camera, which was this. You made the comment that part of walking is surrender, and it's kind of born out of a conversation that Apostle Dave and I had about, he said, basically, I've lived 8 decades, so 8, 10-year sections. And he said every section requires the same thing, surrender. Because, and I don't know if it's at the 10-year mark, but there's probably something within that 10 years where you're going to have to surrender to God, right? And we walk through things. I don't think I'm telling tales out of, I lost my dad about 10 years ago. You just lost your dad earlier this year. There's a place of surrendering, right? There's that going through that transition, there's nothing you can do about it, right? If God's calling them home, God's calling them home. And so, but in that you have to surrender. And so people that are watching, Brandon, they're all over different types of surrender. But I loved how you put it, and I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but we feel like we sometimes get to the I've surrendered everything. Yeah. And then something happens that changes our perspective. Yeah. And so can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, it doesn't have to be what happens, but just what that looks like going forward when I feel like, because I've been there, I felt like, well, God, and I'll end up today with just a story out of my own life, feeling like, God, I thought I had given you everything. Yeah. And then, for that not to necessarily be the case.
Yeah. The Lord showed me years ago that my walk was a lot like levels. You've got 1 through 10, and you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 being this is the basics, and it's that basics of just like being that simple obedience. You're going to listen to what I'm saying, and then He just takes you through just different levels of intensity of that obedience, and then you get to level 11, which is just 1 again. You're back at 1. You're like, you're at.
It's almost like not 11. It's like 1.1.
It's 1.1, and it's 1.2, and so I keep finding myself and like, man, I feel like I've been here before, but it's a different level of basics. It's like He always brings me back around to like coming back to the simplicity of hearing Him like clearly.
So let's look at this scripturally, because you see it with Peter, right? Follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. Yeah. They walk all the way through the book of John. You come back to John 21. What's He say? Follow me.
Yeah.
What is it? It's 11 or 1.1. Like I'm getting you back to what I said. Yeah. Follow me. But what we don't realize in the first follow me for all of us is the refinement.
Yeah.
To get back to the follow me. And then once we get through the refinement, now we're back to follow me. And you don't lose all of that. So don't get discouraged like, wow, this is like Groundhog's Day. We just keep, no. There's a releasing in that refinement that brings you to the places of purpose, which you see with Peter, preaching, going to Cornelius, preaching on Pentecost, going to Cornelius' houses and other things that he did. That wouldn't have happened if he hadn't gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1 or 10, 1.0, yeah. 1.1, whatever that was. Yeah. So what does that look like? How do you reconcile that, Brandon? You said God showed you that a long time ago. How do you keep from getting discouraged and just saying, look, I'm good where I'm at? I think that's a choice along the way too, right? I mean,
oh yeah, definitely. I've never settled. That's one thing in mine and Liv's life. We've never settled. We've always wanted the more. Even if we were in a place where we're not hearing and you feel like you're the furthest from him, we always were desiring more. And I know that's not for everybody. I know, you do got to go through some discouragement at times, because there were times where we thought we were moving and leaving California.
Right.
And we were unsettled in even calling this place our home. And there were moments where I'm very frustrated with the Lord, because I'm like, hey, I feel like you're not saying anything right now. And it's silent. And then he just reminds me of that. Let's go back. Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to listening. Let's go back to just spending time in my word, not trying to check off the list, but just come and spend time with me. And the best way I can relate that is in my relationship, in my marriage. I've noticed, like, every 7 to 10 years, I've been married 20 years. So, well, after about 7 years of marriage, I noticed that our relationship changed in, I don't like the same things maybe I liked when I was 18.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right. Oh, goodness. By that time, you're only 25.
Right.
Right? I mean, for me, 7 years into marriage, I'm 42, or 37. So, there's a bit
So there's some change.
Right, yeah.
I go from being a teenager to a young adult. And another 7 years was another significant change. You add more kids and in just how we relate to each other in our marriage.
And not to get too deep in this, but as guys, about 30, something shifts in you anyway.
It does.
Right. So now you're what? You're about 15 years in? No, what was it?
So we're...
well, you're 18, 25, so 32, so 14 years in, whatever that is. You go through this shift that I think most... he may watch this. Ron Ramirez used to say, he was an elder here for a long time in our church, the guys don't get their brains till they're 30. And he would say it jokingly, but I don't know what it is, but it feels like the light switch is on at 30 in a way for men that probably isn't the way for women. So I could see, right? But even in that, right, there is that place of surrender. There's that place of feeling like you're starting over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because there's, in our marriage, what Liz and I have always done is several years will go by and we'll have this list of 10 things that I like that she does that makes me feel loved.
Oh, okay.
And so I write on the list, like, I love when I come home from work and you greet me with a kiss or a hug, just to know that I came home. Yeah. Or, hey, if I'm just doing the dishes, I love when she comes up behind me and just, those are the things that I feel loved. Now, when I was 18 and we wrote that list out, it was very different when I was 32 and we wrote that list out.
Which I think goes to Isaiah, right? Because when you're 18, you're flying, you're running.
Oh, yeah.
When you're 32, you learn how to. This is long. It's more of a marathon than it is a sprint. So we're learning how to walk it. Yeah. And my taste changed, like you said. But there's a reality to the. Eliana and I heard this song, and it says the book of love is long and boring. Yeah. And that makes sense. So some of you are watching what? No, it's not bad. It's just it's the day to day. Yeah. But you can find so much in the day-to-day if you learn to be okay with walking. You don't have to fly all the time. You don't have to run all the time. Right. Because what was prophesied of me, you won't fly every time. But I think now that I'm getting older, I don't find that just that I crash and burn. There are times that I run and there's times that I walk. And a lot of times I find that I'm walking more than I'm running or than I'm flying. But I appreciate the running and the flying way more because I've learned to embrace and cherish the walking. Yeah. The refinement of the walking. Yeah. Because I think, Brandon, speak to this, even in your marriage, and I love that you brought that in because I think a lot of people I can identify, even if they're not married, they can file this away and grab a hold of it later. That refinement of walking leads you to the flying. It leads you to the running.
It does. Yeah.
But then when that's over, you're back to the walking, right? And that's okay, but that's the reality. So you said, 18 to 25 was section, 25 to 32 was a section. Yeah. So now you're kind of in the third section. You're kind of not fully, well, no, let's see, but 32 to 39. So that was the third section. And so now you're in your fourth section.
Yeah, I'm 42 now.
Okay.
And we are living our best marriage, our best life, like what we feel like is the pinnacle right now. But it's been taking all of those, the mundane walking, the high moments, the low moments, but we keep coming back to the basics of like, hey, don't forget when I come in the home, I love to be greeted. And when for her, it's, you know, she's got her list of things that has changed over the years, but it still comes back to those basic things of building that relationship, those building blocks. And I've related that to my walk with the Lord. He's now bringing me through probably the most intense relationship I've had with the Lord, because I'm having like encounters with him continually and hearing really clearly. And it's come back to this place of like, hey, would you just sit with me? Just sit with me. I'm not, before, when I'm young, I'm praying, fasting, reading, I'm attending every meeting that I can get my hands on.
The more charismatic, the better.
Yes, I was the most charismatic. I was a revival junkie.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Don't mishear us.
there's not.
We joke about chasing the glory, right? You just, you know, want that next experience. But that's what happens. You know, you fly, you run, you want to fly and run, and we resist the walk sometimes.
We do. Oh, we resist the walk because the walk is boring, like you said. The walk is the day-to-day. You know, when you're building relationship with people, there's not always highs, you know?
And this is what, you're the second testimony I've heard in a week of people making a decision to walk something out. And the first testimony, the person said to me, it was 30 years and I'm now starting to see the fruit.
Yeah.
You're saying it was 18 to 42. Now you've seen fruit, right? You've seen God move. You've had relationship, all of that, but now you're seeing something in your relationship with God, and then your relationship with Liz, and then her relationship with God, which is all kind of coming together at one point.
Yeah, and this is the highest of highs. Like, all
but
of
as a pastor, that is so hard to sell to an 18-year-old. They're like, say, huh?
Yeah, you got to put in the work.
Right, that's like 30 years, man. That's like, why can't God come now? Well, God will come now, but
it took me this long to be, you know, when it started when I was about 40. And it took me this long to figure out how to rest.
Yes.
Because I've been in Martha mode.
Yeah.
Because that was the way I was raised.
Yeah.
In ministry and just running hard and go, go, go. And I'm now learning to be like Mary and sitting at the feet and learning to just be quiet.
But I'm watching as a pastor and a pastor of the church that you're in, God releasing you into things to do, but there isn't that stress.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like a
striving aspect.
There you go.
It's just not there anymore, and it's like
you're flowing in the relationship that you already have. So I'm just walking into this because he asked me to.
Yeah.
Even if it came through my pastor, it came through just an open door, say, hey, we need help, or whatever it is. It comes through that flow as opposed to I'm trying to get somewhere, so let me do whatever's in front of me so I can.
Yeah. So I'm back at 1.1, learning to listen, reading through his word way slower. That's what I've learned in this time, way slower.
For the relationship.
For the relationship, because I'm hungry for the intimacy.
Not to check the box.
Not to check the box. And I'm back at the basics again. But these basics are taking me to a higher high than I've never been to before.
I don't know what age range you are, where you're at with anything. I am a little bit older than Brandon. I'm 50. It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago on a Wednesday night. We have prayer services. If you've never come to one, you're in the area locally, we'd encourage you to come. We pray, we worship, and in the presence of God shows up. He and his wife led one last week I wasn't leading, and I was grateful not to be leading because it was so healing and restoring to me just to be in the presence of God. That commercial aside, we were in one, and I was on the stage, and I was leading. And it was the point where we were just in the presence of God being quiet, and God began to speak to me. He said, I want you to give me your life. And I said, God, I feel like I've given you my life. And he didn't really respond, but a prayer began to come out of me, Brandon, that I've never prayed before. God, whether I live or I die, whether I am successful or I fail, whether, you know, and I just started going through the list of things that I've never prayed.
Yeah.
You could have my life. And I didn't know there was a 1 point. I thought once you got to tenure, you know, and I didn't know there was a 1.1, you know, and then we started talking. I'm like, I know what you're talking about because God just took me through that. Like, this is a whole other thing. And wherever you are, spend some time with God in this walk, because we're not running this out. We're walking this out. Now, he's at a pinnacle, right? He is. But what I see Brandon and Liz transitioning into now is walking with other people at the pace that they're going and investing these things as they walk. Yeah. Choosing to walk. That's a whole other thing. Choosing to walk with people as opposed to, I could run, I could fly, I already know the desk, I've already been there, but choosing to walk with people is kind of where I think that they're heading, and I'm excited about that because that's where people begin to grab a hold of the revelation that you have because you're imparting it to them. And then they can carry it for themselves. I don't know where you're at again, like I said, but wherever you are, surrender and walk, because where he's taking you is so rich, it's so good, because it's so full of him. If this meant something to you, please share it. Brandon, thank you so much. Again, it fills my heart because I'm like, now I can see a little bit more, even just where I'm walking right now, and that if I keep walking, I'm going to get to where God wants me to be. So I appreciate you. God bless you. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.